I know it can be hard to decide between the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. I struggled with this myself in the past, so I have extensive experience using both. And right now I have one as my work laptop and one as my personal laptop, so I still use both every day. Today I want to help you figure out which one is right for you, not by focusing on the technical aspects since they're pretty similar between the two, but mostly focusing on which one fits you best, just like if a friend would come to me and ask me for a recommendation. Just a quick note before we start. This didn't used to be this hard because usually the bigger MacBook Pro would get much better processors, dedicated graphics cards, and so on. So it was a clear choice. If you want the best performance, you have to get the bigger MacBook Pro. Now these are really closely matched between all features and in terms of performance as well. So now it's mostly about which size you want that fits your needs and your lifestyle the best. This makes it a lot more complicated because you have to think about those things instead of just thinking about bare performance. But it also makes it a lot more fun because first of all, you can't really go wrong. And second of all, you just have to kind of find the right fit for you instead of comparing performance numbers and all that. All right, so you come to me and ask me if you should get the 16 or 14-inch MacBook Pro. The first thing I will ask you is what are you using right now and how happy are you with it? If you're using a 13-inch MacBook right now, and you're really happy about always being able to bring it with you, fitting it in pretty much any bag, not even just a backpack, and just the general portability, then that would be an indication to just stay in that size category. But if you constantly feel cramped working on it and you tell me that you don't like working on it at all without a monitor, or you just don't like working with just the MacBook itself for intensive tasks, then that would be an indication to maybe try something different and go with a bigger size this time. The same goes if you have a 15-inch. Are you constantly annoyed by how big it is, or are you really happy about the bigger display and being able to get a lot of work done on it? Most people, when you ask this, will have a kind of a gut feeling towards one of both directions, and that will be a really strong indication on which one to go for your next purchase. I know these have become a little bit bigger because we used to have 13 and 15-inch, and now these are 14 and 16-inch. But in terms of the feel in day-to-day life, it just still feels like the same size category. The 14 is just slightly bigger than a 13-inch, and the 16 is slightly bigger than a 15-inch, but it's not really significant. So I would think about this for a moment and kind of figure out which direction you lean in based on that. Next up, I would think about how you use your laptop, and to me the most important aspect here is how often do you plug it into a monitor. If you just travel between your home and office and you have desk setups in both places, I would strongly lean towards the 14-inch just because it will be easier to carry in between the two places and you will not use its own display that much anyways. And if you're traveling and rely on just the laptop by itself, the smaller size will also be nicer. If you don't have a monitor though, and you want to work on the laptop screen itself for a lot of the time, I think the 16-inch is much nicer. If you work for hours just on the laptop, the larger screen is much better and it's a significant improvement over the smaller model. I'm not saying that you can't be productive on the 14-inch, of course, because productivity isn't really that much about the tools you use, but for me at least, I much prefer doing that on the 16-inch. Whenever I spend a whole day at the library and just staring at my laptop screen for hours and hours, I'm really happy to have the 16-inch. So think about this for a moment, and it shouldn't be that hard to figure out, but I think it should play a really big role in making your decision. If you mostly use the laptop by itself without any screens, I would strongly lean towards the 16-inch. If you use screens really often and plug in a monitor almost all of the time, I would really lean towards the 14-inch. Also consider what type of work do you do. I know I just said that the 16-inch is nicer to work on, which is true for most cases, but there's one caveat to this for me, and that is if you work a lot with text, you're a writer maybe, and you mostly have one single window with text editing open. When working with text, there's always a lot of white space to the left and right, so you really don't benefit from the larger screen that much. And at the same time, it's for me at least a little bit nicer to type on the 14-inch because it is thinner and the trackpad isn't as big, which sometimes gets in the way on the 16-inch. And also, there's not a lot of space around the keyboard compared to the 16-inch, which to me feels better ergonomically. So if you don't multitask a lot and mostly work with text, I think you could still get away with just taking the 14-inch and having the smaller laptop, cheaper laptop, and still be really productive with it on the go. That being said though, for most other cases like photo or video editing, programming, anything that requires multitasking, and basically most other tasks, the 16-inch will be nicer. So I would really think about what you spend most of your time working on and then also make that kind of a deciding factor in your decision. How often do you need to take your MacBook with you? This is the question of portability, and it's where most people start. To me, it's not as important as most people make it out to be in this decision, but you should still think about it. Of course, the more often you carry your MacBook with you, the more you should lean towards the 14-inch. But it's also not entirely true in the way that most people think. I think the time where the MacBook is in your backpack isn't really as important. The difference between the 16 and 14-inch is 500 grams, and most backpacks can fit both of the sizes easily. So it won't really bother you as much. More important to me is the time when you're kind of between your kitchen or desk, between a meeting room and your desk in the office, on a plane or on a train. So those times where your MacBook has to be portable and it's outside of your backpack. I would really think about how important that is for you to always move around, work in different places, because the more often you do that, the nicer it will be with the 14-inch. It's just easier to hold in your hand and carry around and walk around with it. So think about this. Think about how important this is for you. Maybe don't think about the backpack as much, more about the time spent outside of the backpack and how mobile you like to be with your MacBook. And then you will probably get a direction of either going more towards the 14 or more towards the 16-inch. If you're still undecided now, I would really recommend you to go to a store near you and look at both in person if you haven't done so yet. Work a bit on both, take both in your hands, and just figure out what your gut feeling is. Which one do you prefer? And of course, in the beginning, you will mostly be impressed by the bigger screen on the 16-inch and by how light and portable the 14-inch feels in comparison. I would just try to go a little bit beyond that. Just figure out which one do you see yourself having, which one do you see yourself working on every day, and which one you just lean towards in terms of your intuition, maybe. It sounds a bit crazy maybe because we spoke about a lot of rational factors before, but I think this is also an important decision. Often we can have a kind of gut feeling towards one or the other, and that will be important in the long run in terms of how happy you are with your decision. Before we move on to a conclusion, there's one idea I want to share with you if you've watched this far. Chances are this is not the first video you watch on this topic, and you're probably obsessing for this decision now for a while. I just want to tell you that this is one of the best laptops that you can get, whichever size you pick, and there really is no perfect choice. If you're just kind of collecting more and more facts and opinions from different people, it will just make you more confused, and the likelihood that you're unhappy with your purchase in the end is much higher because you just have collected so much information on the upsides and downsides of each of the sizes. So since I've been struggling with this in the past as well and trying to figure out the perfect and right decision, I just really want to tell you again, try to make this decision in terms of what fits your needs and lifestyle best right now, and then just stick with it and be happy with your new Mac. It doesn't really make sense to think about this for too long because it will just increase the likelihood of you being unhappy with the purchase in the end. Both of them have trade-offs, and there is no right decision because one does this better and one does the other better. It's just about figuring out which one fits you the best right now. Alright, so let's do a quick recap. If you came to me and asked me, should I get the 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pro? I would ask you first, what do you have right now and how happy are you with it? How are you going to use your laptop? What are you going to do on it? And how often are you going to carry it around? And that's also the order of importance I would ask these questions. If you think about these questions for yourself and kind of figure out what the answer is to each of them, I'm sure you get a direction in terms of what to go for, and that should help you guide your decision. Then just get that one and be happy with it and enjoy your new laptop. It doesn't help to obsess over it. The 16-inch isn't that big that you can't be portable, and the 14-inch isn't that small that you can't be productive on it. So just pick one. It's the best laptop you can get right now. Both of them are insanely good, so pick one and be happy with it. Anyways, that's it from me today. I really hope I could help you out, and I really hope you're happy with your new Mac. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.